Hi, you guys. Okay, I'm excited for you to be here tonight. And so we are just a few minutes out. And so we're going to wait a couple minutes to make sure that everyone gets on that wants to be on this call. And I am excited for the information that we're going to talk about tonight. But we are going to just double check everything. If you can hear me, go ahead and throw in the chat box that, yeah, okay, I can hear everything. Chat should be enabled. I'm excited for you to be here tonight. And so we are just a few minutes out. And so we're going to wait a couple minutes to make sure. Okay, so we're back. And just filling in where anyone, as we're waiting for everyone to do. And I will just briefly share with those of you who are on already, because I know there are some of you that are already locked in and ready to go. Tonight we are doing, the webinar that we're doing tonight is a dumping debt webinar. And so we're going to talk all about debt. And it's a scary topic for a lot of people. It's a frustrating topic for a lot of people. It's a shameful topic for a lot of people. And so we're going to get into all of that. We're going to deal with all of those aspects of debt, what it brings to our life. And then I'm going to give you just pure strategies to get rid of it. But we are going to wait just a few more minutes until we jump in to make sure that the few little people that are going to be popping in late have a second to do so. So cheers, you guys. Okay, so we have a great group here tonight, and we're talking debt. And so, first of all, let me just give an introduction of who I am, where I came from, and why I feel like I have this resource to be able to talk to you tonight about debt. I am Trisha Funk, financial coach and author, founder of financeswithfunk.com. I am so passionate about financial literacy for youth. And so I teach a ton of financial literacy classes for Catholic social services that are the adoptive agencies, the kids that are aging out of the foster care system, monitor the foster care system. I teach classes for community colleges and local colleges that are their grant-funded programs that are EOPS and TRIO services and Upward Bound programs and stuff like that, and just bringing financial literacy to these kids. And so I love that aspect. But I also do one-on-one financial coaching and have for the last 3 years since I retired from my life as an investment advisor and insurance agent. And so 2010, I finally I finally gave up on the strategic business plan of what an investment advisor does. And the reason for that is don't get me wrong, I love the process and I love the field. But what I so struggled with was the fact that my clients would come into my office and they would say, okay, we want to invest, we want to open a Roth IRA, or we want to do this, or we want to do that. And okay, well, we have $50 to invest. And when we go through all of their finances that you have to do when you're opening an investment account, you have to talk about assets, you have to talk about debt, you have to talk about all that stuff, and it has to go in the application. We would find that they have like 10 and 15 and 20 or more of credit card debt, and they're wanting to invest $50 a month for their financial future. And so they're paying 20% on a credit card, and they are wanting to invest $50 a month for a 10% return. And so I counseled people constantly, and I loved that aspect, and I felt that was absolutely my place on this planet, was to work people through the messy stuff in the middle. So I retired from stockbroking and investment advising in 2010. I wasn't exactly sure what the new business was going to be. And almost instantaneously, within literally the first 3 months, I had requests for financial coaching and requests for speaking and financial literacy education. And so that is what I do 100% of my time now. And I absolutely love it. So I have a decade-long, well, now 15 years of experience in the financial industry that I know every aspect. And I can tell you that I actually have the experience and have the information of every facet of your financial situation and of your financial life. And so that's why I feel so enlightened to be able to share this information with you, because I know all sides of the story. It's not just me sharing with you one aspect of your finances because, maybe I was deeply in debt and now I paid it off. And so now I can tell you how to do it yourself. It's not that. It is, I have been in debt in my life and I have paid it off, but it's not that. It is the fact that I have counseled hundreds, if not thousands of families and gone through this process with them. And so I know what works. I know what gets families deeply out of debt, and I know what doesn't. So that's who I am, where I came from, what I'm doing. And so why a webinar just on paying off debt? The average, so I'm in California. And I believe, I honestly probably would say that the average Californian is higher than average America, but in terms of being in debt. But the average American, 70% about is in debt. And to me, that is a huge percentage. And I understand, like in America, we're one of the first countries that we were able to acquire land, which means tremendous amounts towards actually building wealth. I think it's an amazing thing. And so there's an element of that that's in there. But there is also the statistic that according to the USDA, or according to the U.S. Census Bureau, I'm so sorry, according to the U.S. Census Bureau, that is that 1/3 of Americans are behind on a bill or have something in collections. Like 1/3 of us. That means for every 10 people you meet, 3 of them have something in collections or a bill that they're behind on. And that to me is crazy, because the fact is, when we have something that we're behind on, creditors, lending institutions, debtors, they're not forgiving in that aspect. They're not like gracious with us, saying, I understand you had a rough month. I understand that you spent more this month because you had to buy uniforms for one of your children. I get it. So, just pay us when you can. It doesn't work that way, especially here. And so people are experiencing just pain and anxiety over their finances, and it is predominantly because of debt. So that's why we're doing a debt webinar, because I have such a passion for living a debt-free life. I have such a passion for being free from the slavery that debt brings into our life. And there's so many of us that really sit in that place where it's just debt has been commonplace, right? You grew up with it. You there was no structure in terms of finances, and so it's very normal. And I understand that. But even if you did grow up with that, even if you did grow up with that structure of this is a normal part of life, it's not really that big of a deal, you still feel the anxiety and the pressure and the frustration with carrying that debt with you. So that's why tonight I'm doing a webinar on strategies that I have that will help you actually eliminate debt from your life, and some things that anyone on the planet, and I mean anyone on the planet, can actually start to implement into their life immediately. So, the first thought that I had as I'm trying to progress this webinar, and I'll stop that and say that, I want you to get out a pen and paper, and I want you to be ready to take notes, because I did not do PowerPoint for this, because I really just wanted to talk about it with you. I just wanted to help you work through the process. So there's no slides you can download, and I may make those available later, just some worksheets or something like that. But at this point in time, I want you to just pull out something that you can just write notes on for anything that appeals to you, that anything that you think, right, why haven't I thought of that before? Like, why has that not occurred to me before? So, so grab your pen and paper and get ready to take notes. So the first concept that I think is just so crucially important. I don't know if any of you listening have a Christian faith or have a Christian background, but in the Bible, it talks a lot about parables, and one and stories. It's storytelling, right? And so one of the stories that has always just related to me and what I do is the man that's sitting at the well. And he's sitting at a well. It's sitting at the well of life, the well that can heal him. There's water right in front of him that can heal him. And that water, he's in a wheelchair, and Jesus comes to him, and Jesus asks him, like, do you want to be well? Do you want to be healed? And the man answers him with a question like, do I want to be healed? Like, that's the dumbest question I've ever asked, or that you've ever asked me. So the principle behind that is, though, that change in lifestyle is hard. And if you want to live a completely different future, sometimes it means that you have to make changes to your lifestyle today. And I can tell you 100%, I counsel people all the time that actually will pay for my services, will pay for one-on-one coaching for me, or enroll in a financial coaching package with me, and they don't want to be healed because they're not willing to give up what it is that they're doing on a day-to-day basis, what they require, what they need, what they feel is important to them on a day-to-day basis for something for the future. So that's my first question for you as we enter this webinar. I know it's deep and it's serious and it's kind of raw. Is, do you want to be healed? Because quite honestly, if you're not ready to accept the decisions and the actions that you're making right now, then you're not ready to make the progress and make steps towards living a different future. And I love you just the same. I want to help facilitate you just the same, but I also know that as a coach, I am never going to get you where you want to be unless you can participate on this journey with me. So that's my first question for you is like, I need you to be introspective about the fact of, do you want to be healed? And debt and what comes with debt, the stress, the anxiety, the frustration, the shame is a condition. It is not who you are. It is a situation that you're finding yourself in. And oftentimes we buy the lies that we are sold about the situation that we're currently in. So there's my soapbox speech, and I'll get off that and we'll jump right into content. And so, but I do want you to just take a moment to think about it and to really, really just let it ruminate in your soul and in your gut, and ask yourself that question. Allow yourself to ask yourself that question. So, so let's talk next about the difference between credit and debt. And so there are so many of us that have just bought this lie that the ability to establish credit or the ability to have a good credit score means we have to love debt and we have to establish debt in order to do so. And there is a huge difference between that. I work with customers or clients all the time that are either have come out of bankruptcy or are trying to avoid a bankruptcy, or I'm hired to help a group of youth really learn to establish credit in a good way. It never, ever, ever involves actually maintaining debt. So let's talk about what that means. If I have a credit card and I carry a $5,000 balance on the credit card because I want to establish good credit, then I can do so. But I'm paying interest on that credit card every single month. I can establish the exact same good credit and actually statistically better credit scores if I bothered to use that credit card on a revolving basis. This is what I mean. So I use the credit card. I put all of my gas on the credit card, whatever it happens to be for you. It may be all of your food on the credit card. It may be all of your standard bills. So your utilities and your cable and your internet all go on the credit card every single month, and they hit the account at different times. So people's main concern is, but then I pay off the bill and then and then it's not showing an actual balance and I'm maintaining a balance. It's not true, because think about it. I put my gas on the credit card every week. Every week I go to the gas station, I fill my car. And every week I do that. I get the bill at the end of the month and I pay the bill based on the expenses that I actually have every single month. But most likely, or more than likely, before I even got the bill of the current statement, I had already put another tank of gas on the credit card. Or more than likely, just in case that's not the case, by the time they get my check for last month's bill, then I put a new tank of gas on the credit card. That will do just as much for establishing your credit as it will to actually carry a balance and pay the credit card company's interest. They have done an amazing job at marketing. And so they want to convince you, leave money with us because that's what's going to establish your credit. And it's just not fact. So utilize your credit in a good way. Credit, though, has nothing to do with actual debt. And so I want you to really get that and just scientifically accept that into your gut and realize that going forward. So the other thing that when we talk about debt and when we talk about building credit, we talk about getting out of debt, is this phrase, don't sacrifice what you ultimately want for what you want right now. And I'm not going to go into a huge detail on that, but I want you to write it down. And I want you to come back to that throughout this process and throughout this webinar and kind of ruminate on it a little bit. Don't sacrifice what you ultimately want for what you want right now. Because we live in a microwave culture, and we live in this thing that we can have anything we want, any hour of the day, on any day, because we're a 24/7 culture. And that's amazing. But that requires us also to make these instant decisions, and this instant, and it puts us in this position where we are expecting instant gratification. And sometimes that's what continues to get us into debt. I've counseled people, have actually come into meetings where I've been asked to speak with the aging mother or the aging father, and the aging mother in their 70s and 80s have ended up deeply in debt because of infomercials, because of this instant gratification, because of this buy now, buy now, buy now technique, right? And so this is a problem in our culture, and we're being sought after. We are being preyed on because of our ability to buy 24/7. It's a noisy world, and I agree with that. And while I love so many aspects of that, there are definitely some things that we need to figure out how to have a little bit more, we need to figure out how to have a little bit more discretion on before we just jump in and are able to do that. So let's jump in and talk about step one to really addressing your personal debt issue. So step one, without a doubt, that I walk through with my clients all the time is to identify actually what it is. And so it's more common than not that I have people that say, I like everything's on auto bill pay, but I haven't opened an account statement for months. I don't really look at them. It just like it automatically pays it every single month, and that's not a big deal. So, but you have to take the opportunity to look at what you're actually facing. If you want to take the opportunity to move past this or get out of this situation, you have to look at what the situation actually is. So that means opening up credit card statements and actually adding them up. Every single debt that you have, finding the statements, adding them up, and being real. This is your opportunity to be real with yourself about where am I at, what am I looking at, and where is that? What does the starting point look like? And then from that point in time, hopefully you have the opportunity to kind of get mad about it and kind of get a little frustrated. And the opportunity in that may come with this next step, which is sit down with 3 months worth. So 3 months of every credit card you have, 3 months of every bank statement that you have, and actually analyze those purchases. So categorize. So do a food category, do a shopping category, do maybe a clothing category, maybe do a business category, maybe do a whatever it happens to be. If you want to narrow it down even further, do a coffee shop category, and do all these different categories, and then just start adding and add up those 3 months worth of statements and put it into each category, divide it by 3, and look at realistically what you've already spent. This isn't about like budgeting. This isn't about like setting parameters on what you're allowed to spend and what you're not allowed to spend. This is about getting real with what you do spend. And so 3 months is generally a very clear picture of where your loyalties lie, so to speak, and where you currently are. So oftentimes I have clients that sit down and they look at this thing and they are absolutely disgusted when they sit down and bother to do the math. And if I'm in a financial coaching package with people, we do this together. And so I try to hold their hands with grace and kind of prepare them ahead of time. So if you're doing this on your own, maybe find a trusted advisor or a great friend or a mentor that can walk through this with you, because you're going to have a moment that is stressful and frustrating and disappointing to you. You're going to be disappointed in the decisions that you've made because it's not meaningful to your life. You'll realize when you add all these up that there's this one area or maybe a number of areas that are inconsequential to your life that you have allowed to help put you in the position that you're currently in. So, so know what it is. Allow yourself the opportunity to be angry at the position that you're in and what put you there in the first place. And so step 2 that I want you to notate and I want you to write down is understand the costs. And this isn't just, what those totals cost you. It's not just about oh my goodness, I've wasted this much money without even realizing I did it. This is about what are those monthly payments costing you? And so oftentimes when we sit down with clients, we talk about the fact that, okay, well, we're paying this and a car payment, we're paying this and credit card payments, we're paying this, we're paying this, we're paying this, student loans, whatever it may be. All of those together are like $1,000 a month, oftentimes more. But what is that $1,000 a month costing you? Like, what could you do or what would you do differently if that $1,000 a month wasn't required out of your budget? So what is it currently costing you in terms of payment and in terms of required expenses that you wouldn't have if you didn't have the debt? And then secondly is, what is that costing you on an annual basis in terms of interest? And this is a funny one because a lot of people think like, oh, it's just 12. It's usually not just 12%, but oh, it's just this percent or this percent or this percent, it's low percent. But when we sit down and we actually calculate for the entire year, what did you spend on interest? What have you actually paid only to the banks, credit card companies, lending institutions in order to borrow their money? What did that cost you? I had a business recently that we worked together. They wanted to open a second location and we were analyzing the finances and everything. And because they just weren't diligent in actually monitoring debt, and it wasn't really that they carried a lot of debt, but they didn't always pay full balances and all of that. And their interest payments were almost $24,000 for the entire year last year. $2,000 a month. That's one employee's salary. If it's just an office staff, that is massive amounts of advertising on a monthly basis that they were paying because they had to pay because they weren't monitoring. So what is this costing you on an annual basis? Just it's so convenient, right? To be able to borrow money from somebody else to do it. But you have to be able to analyze what has this cost me on an annual basis? This is like, am I looking at like $2,000 or $3,000 over the course of a year? What could you do with $3,000? $3,000 invested in your IRA, $3,000 taking the vacation of a lifetime, $3,000 in kids' college fund, $3,000 in paying off other debt, $3,000 in towards a down payment on a home. I mean, we're generally talking for most individuals, in most families about thousands of dollars that they pay, and it's just a normal part of their budget. They don't think of that as an added expense. So, do you really love your credit card company that much that you want to pay them thousands of dollars a year that you would rather keep or could keep in your budget to be able to utilize for your own goals and dreams? Most likely not, right? Okay, so the last aspect of that, know your costs, is really to analyze how, once you get those figures, how much interest am I paying on an annual basis? Like, what am I paying on a monthly basis just towards debt payments? Is how much time is invested in that? So, how many hours do I have to work to just make those debt payments? Just make those payments based on yesterday's decisions. Just make those interest payments on an annual basis. Like, do you have to work an entire month of the year just to pay banks and creditors and lending institutions their interest for the year in order to be able to have borrowed that money? I mean, that alone should just get you mad because we work hard for our money, right? We all work hard for our income. And if you can't take that into consideration when you're looking at your debt and looking at your situation, then you're missing a huge opportunity for growth and a huge opportunity for making different financial decisions. So, step 1, understand what it actually is. Step 2, understand the cost. And we went through the 3 different costs that you incur by keeping debt. So, step 3, make a plan, and make a plan to just decide, I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not funding the creditors and the credit card company's vacation and their 401k. I'm going to fund my own. I'm going to fund my own vacation fund. I'm going to fund my own activities. I'm going to do all that and not pay them to do theirs. And so here's where we get into the nitty gritty. There's 2 basic houses with how we group our finances. You already figured it all out and decided like what it was. You already see it. You already see it clearly. You already have it in front of you. And so first part of that, there's of the 2 different houses, if you will, that are the ways to pay off debt. First is interest, the highest interest rate. And so all of you that are math nerds, all of you that are analytical in nature will say, I am going to pay off the highest interest rate as fast as I can, right? Because mathematically, it makes sense. The second school of rule is the lowest balance. So there's completely 2 opposites, polar opposites. No matter what the interest rate is, the lowest balance is the one that I'm going to attack first. And I personally never recommend one over the other because it depends 100% on who you are and how you work. So you may be completely analytical where attacking the smallest balance first drives you crazy because you know you're paying 20% interest on something else. I have no judgment on that because how you work is how you work, and you have to do this thing the way you work. The aspect of that, though, and the little sidebar to that is that scientifically, it is proven that there's actually almost 0 difference in the 2 methods based on who does which one. So either side does not necessarily pay off more debt, doesn't pay it off any quicker, and doesn't maintain it over the long term based on just those 2 scientific methods. The reason for that is that if you are analytically minded and you are all about the math, then that's what's going to motivate you. If you are emotionally minded and you need the quick win of seeing things disappear from your life, then you have to go for the smallest balance method. And they both work 100% of the time when implemented correctly. So I'm not going to tell you like one's better than other. What I am going to tell you is that you do need to take the chance to just soak in. Am I going to be burnt out if I'm paying on this large balance for 9 months when there's all these other little things going on? Or am I going to need to see 2 or 3 bills absolutely disappear from my life in order to stay motivated to keep this plan and continue to do it? It's a personal question and I can't answer it for you. And so that's something that you really have to delve into yourself. So the last part of this process is the danger that extra brings to our life. And so I want to ask you all, how many times have you said to yourself, or you've heard someone else say to you, well, if I just had the extra money, I could get rid of debt. If I just had the extra at the end of the month, if I just had the extra, then I could do all of this and I'd be debt free. Maybe I'd meet 10 million other financial goals that I have, because you can insert any sort of financial goal for this exact same argument. So let me talk to you about what extra and how extra is such a devastating concept for most people. So I said it before, we all work hard for our money, right? We all work for every dollar that comes in. And some of you work an overtime shift. Some of you work on a side business in order to bring in extra income that you need to meet household expenses and to meet goals, meet dreams, whatever it may be. When you start to view any of your money as extra, it indicates that it's over and above what's necessary. And just think about it from a pure standpoint of, if something is not necessary, how do we view it? How do we value it? Right? Extra works the exact same way in our finances. We don't give the same value to extra money over and above maybe what we've budgeted, over and above what we need to make sure that our 4 walls are met. And thus, it's less important, which means we disregard it a little easier, which means we use it discretionary a lot more freely as we would with the money that's already budgeted and is set in a framework. So I have a perfect plan for that, which works 100% of the time. And so that is, first of all, eliminating the concept of extra from your life for good. So there is no extra. All of your money that you bring into your life is meant to do something of consequence for you. So it is meant for a purpose. It is meant for a job. And I want you to start thinking about it that way. And so the process that I go through with clients is literally that we figure out here's the baseline. So everybody has the benchmark. Everybody has the baseline of this is what's required. And then over and above that, what is those additional dollars going to actually do for me? So for you, it may be, I am so passionate about just getting out from underneath the weight of this debt. So it may mean for you that 80% of everything that you bring into your life, it's the over and above, you are dedicating towards paying off debt, whether it's the highest interest rate or whether it's the lowest balance is inconsequential. And then maybe 10% is going to go towards building emergency funds, and maybe 10% is going to go for something else that you haven't allowed yourself freedom to have in your budget. And I think wants is a very, very crucial, especially if you're looking at a long-term perspective for getting out of debt. So this is a tried and true practice, and this is a set in stone practice that you have to commit to 100%. So that means that your monthly budget is $4,000, and that includes your food, that includes your everything that you can take into consideration. That includes all of those annual expenses that maybe you don't pay on a monthly basis, but you still need to include in there because they're real expenses in your life. And this month, because you made an extra sale, or this month because um, you were able to pull an extra shift, or you were able to bring on an extra client or an extra sale on your side business. Let's say it's $4,500 a month. That $500 gets split the exact same way, whether it's $500 or $50. 80% to the extra debt payment, 10% to your building your savings, 10% to whatever the other additional want that you haven't allowed yourself. And the essential aspect of this really is just consistency. And that's commitment to the progress, whether it is $50 or whether it is $500 or whether it's $5,000. You get a $5,000 bonus, it may be handled exactly the same way. You get a $50, your paycheck is $4,050 for the month as opposed to $4,000, then $5 goes to a want, $5 goes into savings, and an extra $40 gets tagged onto that debt payment. And I know it seems like that is so slow moving. There's just what if a number of months it's $40? I can guarantee you at the end of the year, those little $40 payments or that little progress is monumental in terms of your progression through where you're at today and where you actually want to be and getting you to that place. So that is my challenge for you today, is to take a look at those concepts. Take the time to be analytical about it. Take the time to analyze where you're currently sitting. Take the time to be introspective about it and do the math and get mad about the situation that you find yourself in and maybe what put you in that position in the first place. And then import, based on your personality, what works for you and how your mind works. What is the best method for me to really try to actually eradicate debt from my life and implement that extra debt process? So I am a financial coach, and if you feel like that you need so much more help than what you're doing with here, I was an investment advisor and insurance agent for a decade, turned financial coach in the last 5 years, and run a financial coaching practice where I work with people all over the world. And I have the ability to kind of walk you through and handhold you through that step-by-step process of, let's get real about where we're at and let's get real about where you want to be. And I can help you uncover things that you never really even understood in your own life was an issue for you. So if you're more interested in that, send me an email and I'll send you a free consulting package or a free consultation, 30-minute consultation. There's probably a link in this page that you can schedule a little free 30-minute consultation. And so I offer that to anyone who's participated in webinars that I've done, which is not normally the case. But if you want just a little free session, no obligation, no sales technique, no big platform, anything like that, just you and me talking about your specific issues and your very specific questions, then feel free to click that link and we'll talk about it. We'll talk about your issue and we'll see if there's some sort of resolution that we can bring you in the meantime, and whether financial coaching is right for you. And so hopefully you learned something new. Hopefully you took notes and you feel inspired to move past what the position that debt has put you in until now. And you're inspired to make a decision that moving forward, that you deserve a different future than what you're currently living in. So have a great night. If you have any questions, feel free to email them, and I will talk to you soon.